Good evening, everyone, and welcome to All Things Brunswick. I'm Mary Stillwell, and I invite you to stay with us for the next hour. We have a great show for you. I want to thank TK, our wonderful tech, whom we couldn't do anything without. And tonight's guest is somebody special that I have a great deal of respect for. Busy person, Mr. Bob Percesepe. And he is the immediate past president of the Brunswick County Association of Realtors.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob, for coming.
Yeah, I say immediate because we have a, when you make the commitment to become the president, it's actually a 3-year commitment.
Sure.
So you are a president-elect, and then you have your president year, and then you have a
Right.
past president year, and
Sure.
you sit on an executive committee at that level, and that's why I always say, I'm the immediate past president.
Well, that's understandable. It's kind of like the same thing that we have with, for instance, the Brunswick County Republican Women. The executive board consists of the immediate past president.
Right, and it gives
So-
everybody the opportunity to roll out and
Exactly.
move up and roll out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So please tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how long you've been in Brunswick County.
Okay. I've been a realtor, a member, and engaged in the real estate industry for not quite, but almost 40 years.
Wow.
So, I started out when I was 4 years old. So I've been in the business for quite a while at a variety of different levels, but mostly in the management and sales of real estate. And I've been very, very engaged in the industry for some time. I have served pretty aggressively, not just at the Brunswick County Association of Realtors, but at the North Carolina Association of
Right.
Realtors, where I am a trustee for the Realtor Political Action Committee, and I sit on a few other committees at the state level.
Great.
I'm a former New Yorker. I've been in Brunswick County for 15 years, but I was also engaged in the industry in New York for many years as well.
Okay. So you have a lot of experience in this.
I've been around the block a few times.
Yeah. So I think the first question that I would like to ask you is, what do you see as the most challenging thing now in Brunswick County as far as housing, the sale of, and on both sides of the coin of the housing industry here?
Well, I would love to say that Brunswick County is unique, but interestingly, we're really not that unique nationally. We have almost the same challenges that many emerging markets have, and we certainly are an emerging market. We have a very, very specific dynamic in Brunswick County in that we are the fastest growing county in the state of North Carolina right
Yes.
now. So there's a lot of migration into Brunswick County, but I would clearly, hands down, say that we could, without a doubt, say that our number one challenge is narrowing the housing gap for workforce housing. That is our
yes.
biggest challenge, and it's not specific to Brunswick County, but we are experiencing a housing shortage for our workforce housing folks, probably more than most markets across the country.
I was going to say, I wondered, I have met so many people who work in our county but do not live here
Right.
because they can't afford to live here.
Right. We have, this dynamic where one thing about North Carolina that's wonderful, I mean, there's many wonderful things about our state, of course, but we do a amazing job at attracting people into the state. We've got, industry, we've got commerce, we've got everything that attracts people. Of course, we have a beautiful climate, and we live in a beautiful state. And of course, in Brunswick County, we have the privilege and benefits of the coastal region that we enjoy so much.
Yes.
But one of the things that we are really bad about is housing the people that we really need the most.
Yes.
And we have a very, very difficult time housing our first responders, our firefighters, our law enforcement officials, our teachers, nurses, even entry-level medical professionals.
Right.
These are all folks that we have a difficult time getting housing, and they come here and they get kind of shell-shocked a little bit, and that's
I'm
very
sure.
problematic, not just for them, but it's problematic for the real estate industry.
So, is there a solution?
Well, one of the things that the North Carolina Association of Realtors is working very, very hard at, and of course, Brunswick County Association of Realtors is integral in making sure that it does develop, is, we're trying to do things to work with our elected officials, and we're so blessed here that we do have elected officials that we can get in front of, and they recognize the problem, and
Right.
especially at the county commissioner level, and our North Carolina legislators and our senator. But we've got to ease regulatory constraints that allow for more workforce housing, and that's what's going to ultimately meet the needs of so many growing communities in Brunswick County, and it expands across the state. We have to ease some local restrictions to allow for more housing types. We have to have more opportunities for a variety of housing types.
Absolutely.
We've got to allow properties owners in Brunswick County to have the ability to repurpose current unused commercial properties into housing in some commercial and light industrial zoning districts. And now that's not a specific problem in our county,
Right.
but it does open us up for opportunities in some of the more metro markets. And we can't be selfish about just thinking about Brunswick County alone. We have to think about some of our surrounding counties, New Hanover County. We think about some of the large metro markets like Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte.
Sure.
These metro markets do have the ability to repurpose some of their existing homes, buildings, I should say. It's happening a lot in Durham. It's happening a lot in Raleigh, and that's refreshing. But we do need to ease up on some of those restrictions to make workforce housing a little bit more attractive and affordable.
Absolutely.
And the key thing that we've got to do specifically in Brunswick County is that we've got to enable people to live where they work, where they shop, where they worship, where they have the ability to
Yes.
commute. And
Yes.
those are all,
And I have talked to a lot of first responders who would prefer to rent as opposed to purchasing a home. Now, we're talking young people,
Yeah,
okay?
right.
And not necessarily have they decided that this is where they want to stay. So therefore, they're not interested in purchasing a home
yeah,
yet.
they may want to test the water
Right.
for a little while.
And so
Sure.
they want something that's reasonable that they can rent, and then graduate from that to perhaps purchasing a home when they decide where they want to be.
That's always
Yeah.
the entry level dilemma.
Right. And I'm amazed at the amount of young people that I've talked with that this is what they prefer.
Yeah,
Even the married ones with a couple of children.
yeah, yeah. And
So-
that, again, workforce housing doesn't specifically go right to
Right.
ownership.
Yeah.
It may go to
Yeah.
being a renter on the short term.
Well, their concern was, perhaps there are developments right now where they would be able to purchase a home, but they are just not interested in doing that right yet.
Right. Yeah. A few more rentals wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and we, I know this one young man. He lives in Bladen and he works in Brunswick,
Yeah.
and he'd like very much to live here.
Sure. Sure.
But I'm sure he can't afford it. So he said, well, eventually I'll settle down and buy a home and whatnot. But he said, right now I'm still sowing my oats, my wild oats. And I said, absolutely, which is what you need to be allowed to do.
Right. Well, there's other components to it. Right now the legislature is working on a bill right now, House Bill 409, which is we call it an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit. So an accessory dwelling unit may help in some ways, and that would be throughout the state. There's pockets of different markets where there might be the ability to either put a second structure or an accessory apartment on an existing structure that would help ease some of the housing, not as a tool to work around zoning laws,
Right.
but to give folks that may have a adult child that lives with them or a
Right.
senior parent that lives
Well, I
with
was
them.
going to ask about that. I
Yeah.
know that some cases I have seen homes where they have an additional apartment or whatnot built on, and they call
Right.
it the mother-in-law home.
Right.
Now, do we have a huge need for that as well?
Oh, it would answer a lot of problems in
Okay.
Brunswick County, and not that we're really highly restricted,
Right.
because we're really not highly restricted on that. But it is an alternative, and it's probably a very, very wise plan. People are living in their homes longer. College graduates are staying with mom and dad a little bit longer.
Yes.
They're trying to
Yep.
define where they want to be, where they want to go, where their lives are taking them. And then we have, conversely, on the other side of that, we've got elderly seniors that are, want the opportunity to stay with their families
And
and with their
especially if
adult
they
children.
and
And
especially if they've lost their spouse.
they maybe lost their spouse. Maybe it's an alternative to assisted living. Maybe it's an
Right.
alternative to long-term care. So what we'd like to see happen at some level, and of course it's a little bit different in metro markets in North Carolina than it is in Brunswick County, but it would be the inroad to helping ease that a little bit. It's we're kind of looking for a light touch. That's what we call it, a light touch on zoning reform that would increase the density without altering the character of the neighborhoods. Obviously, you've got to think about things like parking. You've got to think about
Yes.
things like emergency ingress and egress. You have to think about all the things that our code enforcement officials at the
Right.
municipal level are challenged with. So we don't want it as a workaround to create more rentals. We wanted to see it as just a simple mechanism to allow folks to have a little bit more opportunity and flexibility in trying to create their existing
Right.
real estate into something that might be just a little bit more practical for
I
their
believe
needs.
it was yesterday that this was one of the topics that Congressman Rouser brought before the legislature.
Yeah.
And he spoke about that very need and the fact that it is something that can't wait 3 or 4 or 7 years.
Yeah, I would agree. Our lobbyists at the North Carolina Association of Realtors are pushing pretty aggressively to see our state legislature look at this because they feel the same way that Congressman Rouser does. And
Apparently that means, though, that it's everywhere.
it's across the state.
Yeah.
It is across
But I
the
mean,
state.
other than just the state.
Oh yeah. Oh,
you know.
it's a national epidemic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question that we have a shortage that we can't measure in.
Right.
We're literally measuring housing shortage in millions of dwelling units, not just a handful. I mean, we're talking a extraordinary number, and this would help kind of offer a little bit more affordable housing option in comparison to single-family housing, which makes housing more accessible to just more folks. So these are all things that the North Carolina Association of Realtors is working for and toward, and Brunswick County Association of Realtors. Although we don't have this as a challenge in our immediate market, it might help ease a little bit of that housing challenge that we've got.
Right.
It at some level.
Well, I'm thinking that, and just from what I've heard, seen, etc., it is an immediate problem.
It really is. I mean, when I start talking about statistics of housing sales in Brunswick County, most of it looks like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And then you start digging down a little bit, and we've got challenges.
Yeah.
Now, one thing about Brunswick County that is unique is that we have county commissioners that are easy to work with.
Oh, they're wonderful.
They're really good to work with. They listen, they understand all of the challenges, they address the challenges. They're very, very influential at making sure that we make our budgets very, very sound without raising taxes. So, great respect to our county commissioners.
They are wonderful. We are so fortunate.
Right, and I applaud them all, and I think I can speak for the Brunswick County Association of Realtors that we respect what they do, and we appreciate the fact that they'll simply listen, and that is a very, very helpful thing for us.
I'm sure that you, the association, must have what perhaps you deem projects that you want to go forward on. Do you want to talk a little bit about what they might be?
Are we talking about, because, I always have to say the same thing. As a real estate broker, we don't control or create markets.
Sure, I understand
We
that.
simply react to markets.
What maybe if I word it differently, what you would like to see in the future as an association that would perhaps benefit your area, your people, or
I think there's probably multiple answers to that question, but the key one is the one we already talked about, is trying to create an environment where we have some mechanism to create a better opportunity for workforce housing so that we don't push people away from our county.
Right.
Which, the last thing that we want to see is folks that come in, explore, live here for a year or two, and then shrug their shoulders and say, we can't live here, we just can't afford it. We want to avoid that at every cost.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that we would like to see. Thing number one is we'd like to see developers that are open to the idea of dedicating a portion of their projects to workforce.
That would be wonderful.
And there was a bill last year that was tabled. I think it was House Bill 317 that was going to give developers the opportunity to actually do that and dedicate 20% of their projects that exceeded a 10-acre development zone, so that some of the homes that were being built would be able to be attached specifically to workforce housing folks. The other thing that would be particularly helpful, and this is a little bit off topic in terms of the housing component, but it's directly connected, is we've got to see a better economic structure simply for interest rates.
Oh, yes.
So if you really start thinking about the dynamic of interest rates right now, so the average sale price right now today in Brunswick County, now remembering that we have a big spread of property in Brunswick County. We have fairly lower level, entry level homes, and then we can get up into the uber luxury class pretty quickly. When we start looking at some of our barrier islands, and it's not hard to find a very high-end property. So it does kind of skew our average sale price a little bit, but our average sale price right now, as of the end of May, was $486,000.
Really?
That's our average sale price.
And I've been here 30 years, and that is the first time that I've ever known it to be that
Well,
high.
let's put it in perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, just simple math. This is very uncomplicated math. So interest rates right now, and the real estate industry lives, breathes, sleeps by interest rates. I mean,
Yes.
everything that we do is connected
Yes.
to mortgage interest rates.
Yes.
It's just the nature of our life. So if you were to speak to any realtor and say, what are what are interest rates doing to your business, you're going to get that cringe face from them.
Ooh.
So right now today we're hovering about 7% for a 30-year
Yep.
non-conforming or even a conforming loan. We're about 7%. It might be 6.9. Last week it was like 7.01, but we're hovering at 7%. So simple math. The last time that we saw 7% interest rates was in 2001. So in 2001, the average sale price of homes in Brunswick County was $116,500.
Exactly.
And today it's $484,000. Now that's a 400% increase.
Yes.
And let's remember that we had a recession in between those
yes,
years.
we did.
So that sounds like, wow, those are just huge increases in the value of properties. And some folks would say, that's a really good thing, isn't it? Well, I guess if you put it into perspective, you could say, yeah, it's a good thing for the homeowner that, stuck it out for 20 years in his home. But a 400% increase of property sales price, you have to look at the income that was used to purchase that house in
That is
2001 versus the income that's used to purchase that same piece of real estate today. And incomes have only risen about 41%. So the pace of the prices escalating is far outpacing incomes.
Yep.
And this is what leads to problems. Think about this. The average mortgage payment is 102% higher.
Yes.
Just think about that number. 102% higher than it was 4 years ago. We live in a generation. There's a generation of homeowners right now that never saw interest rates that were above 4%. There's an entire generation of Americans that up until a year and a half ago never saw interest rates like that. And there's also an entire generation of real estate professionals and mortgage loan officers that never had to experience that.
Exactly.
Those of us that have been around for a while, I remember when I first broke into this business, I was selling houses at 13, 14%. That was the culture then.
Right.
We made a pretty good living and we sold houses, but we didn't have that crazy inflation that drove, prices way up into unreachable territory. So, we have to think about, incomes matching pace with property
And
values.
with that changing, it's like up and down, up and down. I'm a homeowner, but I don't own a home in this state. I own a home in another state.
Yeah, we have to fix that.
No, I had a home here. I sold it, and I'm right now. I have to say this: I don't want to own one here.
Yeah,
I don't.
I hear this.
It would be an extreme hardship with me.
Yeah, I hear this from time to time.
Yeah.
I know how that goes. A lot of folks.
And the home that I own in another state is mine. I don't have a mortgage, which is a good thing because if I did, I think that would be a hardship too.
Yeah, and that's another reason that we have kind of a disparity in housing in Brunswick County. I think that if you look at statistically, this number hasn't changed in many, many years, but 14% of all real estate transactions are cash.
Yeah.
There's no mortgage
Well,
involved.
you have folks that are coming down from up north.
Right, they come from different markets.
They have sold their home there. They come with cash,
Right.
ready to buy and stay here.
But our concern has to be that entry level buyer
yes,
in that 86%.
yes,
Those are the folks we have to really
Right.
focus on a little bit more.
yeah,
And interest rate drops would really be the driver
Yes.
to fixing a big piece of that problem. 102% increase in your mortgage payment versus 3.5 to 4 years ago. That's unsustainable. It's unrealistic, and it can't continue.
No.
And ultimately, that will be painful for the economy, not just in Brunswick County, but across the country.
Oh, absolutely.
So, the Fed is kind of sticking to their guns right now about, the delay in, dropping, LIBOR, dropping, the rate that the Fed loans to banks. And, so we're going to be looking at this probably for the rest of the year. My gut feeling is that, it's going to there's going to be a kink in the hose that has to be opened up.
Oh, yes.
And,
it has to change.
I would love to see that happen in early 25.
Right.
And of course, then that will help ease purchases. It'll see a few more refinance options for people that are already in homes that bought, at a rate that they probably weren't in love with. So maybe get their monthly payment down. I always say it the same way. The average home purchaser really doesn't live in the purchase price. That $486,000 number, that's a big number, but they don't really live in that purchase price. They live in the monthly payment.
Yes.
They live in that
Absolutely.
monthly payment. So,
and with everything else on the increase, it's very difficult.
it's tough.
So, and I believe, I'm a firm believer that every election, whether it goes as you wish or not, will change a lot of things.
Yeah, as much as we don't want to believe that, it is the case.
Does, and I'm hoping that the upcoming one will change things for the better.
Yeah, I do have some good news for Brunswick County.
That's good.
So, I can give you some good news if you want to feel.
Yes,
a little
I
bit
would
better.
love to get some good news.
Yeah, so you have to talk about statistics, and you can interpret statistics in a million different ways. I am a just kind of fanatical about it. I always want to thank our executive officer at the Brunswick County Association of Realtors, Cynthia Walsh. Cynthia is the guru on this topic, and she provides us with these monthly statistics that give us a clear indication of where we were and where we may be going. We can't predict where things are going to go.
Okay. So on that note, because I want everybody to think hard about that, we're going to take a break, pay some bills, and we're going to come back for some good news. Stay with us. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, Attorney at Law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, folks, to All Things Brunswick. Today we have a special guest with us, Bob Percesepe, and he is the immediate past president of the Association of Realtors in Brunswick County. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
You've been giving us all kinds of great information that I know everybody is so happy to hear. We left for the break with the thought that we were coming back to get some good news. So let me ask Bob what that good news is.
Well, I mean, I'll start with the very, basic fundamental good news.
Okay.
If you are moving to Brunswick County or you're relocating here from anywhere and you are either getting to retirement or you're a senior, this is a great place to live.
Yes.
I mean, you can buy housing, it's affordable compared to most markets in the Northeast or to the Great Lakes. I mean, it's affordable. That's great news. We have an extraordinarily low tax base in
Yes,
Brunswick
we
County.
do.
We've already talked about our kudos that we gave to our county commissioners that worked so diligently about maintaining that low tax base, and we applaud them for that. But let's talk about the culture.
Yes.
This is a great county to live in.
It is.
Let's
It
talk about the
absolutely
climate.
is.
It's beautiful here 365 days a year, and you don't have to shovel snow.
No,
and you don't
you
have
do
to,
not.
I've never had to shovel sunshine ever in my life. So we do have those luxuries about living in a great community in a great county.
Yes, it has a lot of pluses.
It really does. And we just love that our folks that come in from other markets understand and respect that this is a great place to live. And North
Yes.
Carolina in general is a beautiful state. And I'm certainly proud to be a resident of this state, transplanting from another state myself. But let me share some good news with you, okay?
Okay.
Mary? So, one of the big challenges that we've had in the last couple of years in real estate that has been specific to our industry, both locally here in Brunswick County, across the state, and even across the country, is the inventory shortage. I mean, we've had a pretty dramatic inventory shortage.
Sure.
And you hear about, folks getting into multiple offer situations on homes or not having the opportunity to look at enough listing inventory and not having as many options in their purchases and being kind of pigeonholed into what they're going to purchase.
Right.
And that's, thankfully, that's easing a little bit. Our inventory is slowly starting to come up a little bit, which is good. It's actually increased about 25% year over year. That's how we measure it. We measure things year over year.
Right.
So when I talk about numbers today, I talk about how they were comparable a year ago.
Okay.
So we just simply look back 12 months and say, where were we
Right.
a year ago? Where are we today?
Okay.
It's kind of the easiest way to gauge things.
Sure.
And our inventory has kind of risen about 25%. Which
and that's because of building?
it's a couple of different things.
Okay.
A lot of folks, home sellers, were anxious about exiting their homes because they might be living with a very low interest rate on their homes at 3.5 to even lower. And their thought is, rightly so, what am I going to exit out of and then enter into with a new mortgage that might be at 7? So they were very anxious about this. But the reality is, interest rates move.
Yes,
They
they do.
change.
They fluctuate.
So where they are today may not be where they are in a year. And I think these folks are starting to understand that waiting is never a good option.
Right.
So if the prices are coming up a little bit, maybe I should take advantage of a higher price point, bite the bullet on the short term on a interest rate that might not be attractive today, but might be something I can fix next year. So
Exactly.
I think that's eased a little bit of the inventory. Now, the other piece of this is, and this is a staggering statistic, absolutely staggering. In 2023, for about 5 months in a row, we were seeing 53% of all home sales were new construction, which is a huge, on a percentage basis, a huge amount of volume for new construction. If you were to go into most metro markets across the country, a normal new construction ratio would be 7-8% of all sales would be new
Wow.
construction. I remember back in the mid-90s when Houston was booming, and new construction ratio at that time was 14%. It was unheard of. and here we were in Brunswick County just a year ago
At
at 53%.
Oh my word.
So just think about that. That means that
Yeah.
that's 47% of the housing that's in Brunswick County that sold last year. Many realtors didn't even get to participate in the sales
Oh, for
because they
goodness.
were, new.
You know, you're right, because I heard that.
Right. So now that number has eased a little bit, and right now today we're about 39%, which is still a staggering,
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
staggering ratio. And in New Hanover County, they're experiencing something that's maybe not on that same parallel, but they still have the same dynamic. Pender County is seeing some construction as well. So, this is all evolving together, but 53% and now coming down to 39%. Your big tract developers are a little less inclined to leave a lot of standing units on the ground. In other words, they don't want to have too much standing.
Yeah.
They'd like to see the stuff that they've got moving, or maybe have some pre-sale business to help develop a market a little bit.
How do they? So, you're saying that a developer goes to an area and builds a development of, say, 30 houses, and before he even gets them built, he's sold them?
That might not be always the case, but they try to do, it's a common practice for your average developer that's in that picture to try to pre-sell as many as they can. The challenge, of course, that they have is, permitting them and trying to hold the price on construction costs.
Yep.
These are all, you can imagine the challenges that
Oh,
these
yeah.
developers have. I mean, it's painful for them to manage these budgets on projections that are driven by things that are way outside of their control.
Exactly.
I mean, if you
And
think about it, I think Commissioner Williams just a week ago said that developers in Brunswick County injected $1.2 billion last year just into infrastructure of the services that they had to provide. And we're talking about roads and curbs and sidewalks and water and sewer and, pump stations. My gosh, the cost of a pump station is nearly $1 million for sewer transport, moving sewage. So these are great things for the county, but this goes back to trying to help developers get to a place where they can project a little easier and not run the risk of getting beat up
exactly.
on their projects, because call it what it is. I mean, we need it. We need the housing.
Yeah.
So
So they bypassed you guys.
yeah, a lot of
So-
times,
well,
that's an industry challenge. I mean, so
And so let me ask you, okay, so the home buyer, all right, eliminating the realtor, do they still pay the costs that they would pay the realtor?
yeah, generally speaking, they do. But
They
what
pay
happens
them
is
to the developer.
yeah. In other words, many developers will have on-site agents, which is a normal accepted practice.
Okay.
But it's for the other 1,600 realtor members in Brunswick County, that developer that built 30 houses, well, that's 30 transactions that realtor members don't get to participate on
Right.
one side. They might be
Yes.
able to bring in a buyer,
Right.
get the buyer side of the transaction, but that's specific to our industry, and that's one of those things that just, it's a business model, and we have to live with it, and good or bad, or, we can all have opinions on it, but listen, I would never want to be in a position where we're faulting a developer or any homeowner or
Right.
any property owner
Right.
for having a business model that might be a little different. I mean, we need to be open to those ideas, and we need to make sure that we embrace it and that
Sure.
we help them,
Sure.
and certainly realtor members do that. We
Yes.
want to make sure that we're
Yes.
doing what we've got to do for the consumer as well.
And
So-
that's wonderful. That's a great way
So
to look
I mean,
at
I
it.
wanted to get into some really good numbers. So that, your average property owner might not understand, but it means a lot to the real estate community, because when we have these inventory shortages, we want to measure how long it's going to take us to get out of those shortages. You know,
Yes.
that's the most important thing. How long will it take us to exhaust an inventory? So a year ago, we were looking at what we call an absorption rate. An absorption rate is the length of time that it would take to exhaust the existing standing inventory. In other words, how long would it take to sell it off? So if you had 100 houses, I mean, that's not even a great analogy, but
So you keep up on that.
oh, we have to
Yeah.
we look at that very, very
I
carefully.
bet you do.
So a year and a half ago, we were looking at an absorption rate of 1.4 months. In other words, we only had a 1.4 month inventory of homes.
Okay.
You can exhaust 1.4 months. You could exhaust that in an eye blink.
Wow.
And when you have fewer properties, your absorption rate, comes down.
Yep.
And that's not a normal market.
No, it
Okay,
isn't.
that's not normal.
No,
and
it
and
isn't.
at this point, we don't even really know what normal is.
I'm
But
sure.
our absorption rate today is about 4 months.
Really?
Yeah, so it's just proving that we've got.
That's fast.
Yeah, it jumped.
Yeah.
So we've got more homes being introduced to the market. It makes things a little bit more competitive. You might have more opportunities as a buyer, and it takes a little longer to sell. A year ago, we were roughly 37, 38 days on market. It took, in other words, from the time it took
Right.
for a listing to come to the market.
And I think that's even fast.
It's rocket speed fast.
Yes.
Yeah. So 38 days on the market. Today we're hovering about 60.
Really?
Yeah. Today we're right about 60 right now, which is very, very close to being what I would call normal. And now there's a couple odd statistics that kind of go hand in hand with that. In that resale homes, existing homes, are 52 days on market.
Really?
New construction homes are hovering around 84 days. So it's taking the developers a little longer to get their homes sold.
Yeah.
So they have to be a little bit more aggressive. And the resale folks, Mr. and Mrs. Smith that are selling their home, they have a little bit of an edge right now, which is a very small edge, but it's refreshing to see those numbers because it's a very, very clear indicator that we're normalizing.
Right.
That we're not we're not in a frenzied market. And we all know that a frenzied market is just bad.
And it's very scary.
It's scary, right? That's the
Yeah.
word, scary.
Yeah.
So
very.
here's some other good news about Brunswick County. In May, this number kind of frightens me a little bit sometimes when I say it, and it's interesting. In May of this year, there were 35 sales in Brunswick County that were over $1 million. Now, in past
Are
years,
you serious?
35 sales, and this has been the trend for over 2 years.
Oh, my word.
And many of those sales were over $2 million. So the highest sale in Brunswick County last month in May was $2.2 million.
And they were in different areas.
Right. Now, here's the interesting thing. That was always isolated for many years. Those high seven-figure sales, 1 million plus, were usually isolated to Bald Head Island.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's not like that anymore. We're seeing those sale prices happen in Oak Island. The highest price sale home last month was in Oak Island.
Oh, my goodness.
We're seeing it in Ocean Isle Beach. We're seeing it in Sunset Beach. We're seeing it in Holden Beach. So, and interestingly, we're actually seeing it in some of our larger gated communities. We're seeing seven-figure sales becoming kind of common.
Oh, my
But 35
word.
sales of homes over $1 million last month.
That's a
So,
lot.
Those numbers were usually reserved to Bald Head Island, and now it's really not the case, at least in the most recent market. So that's some interesting stuff.
It is.
And we start looking at the average sale price going up, but we do measure things in sales volume. So interestingly, there's not been big, dramatic, giant movements in volume. When we talk about volume, we mean dollar volume.
Okay.
So in May of 23, our dollar volume was $271 million. We sold $271 million in real estate.
Wow.
Well, here we are 12 months later, and we're up to 273 million. So the numbers are trending very, very closely
Yes,
together.
they are.
So that is also a very strong indicator of a market that's normalizing.
Good.
So, what's it gonna take to drive it to the point where we start talking about affordability and start talking about, buyers that can look at houses a little bit more realistically that they may not have had the opportunity to get into? It's going to be interest rates.
Oh,
Interest
yes.
rates will be
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
no question that interest rates will be the match that lights the tinder.
Yeah.
That's the way it's going to be. So
Now, are we having the same amount of folks who are coming to the area? Has that changed?
that doesn't seem to have shifted very much. We had some almost frightening statistics during the pandemic, initial year of the pandemic,
Right.
where there were literally 980 people, plus or minus, a day
Holy
migrating into
cow.
North Carolina. Just think about
my
that,
goodness.
980 people a
A
day
day.
migrating into North Carolina, and a full 53% of those people were going to 2 counties.
Us being one
No,
of them.
we were not one of them.
We were not one of
No,
them.
Mecklenburg and Wake.
Okay.
So 53% are migrating to
Right.
Mecklenburg or Wake, but the remaining 47 are coming to coastal communities, just like Brunswick County.
Right.
Now, thank God that 980, post-pandemic has been cut in half. I'm not sure about the exact number today, but it's certainly half of what it was in 2020. But that was a frightening number.
Why do you think that is? Because Mecklenburg and Wake are more industrious.
Well, you're
perhaps?
talking about, more metro markets.
Yeah.
We're talking about metro markets, which is attractive to,
Right.
half the population is attracted to that.
Yeah.
Not everybody's attracted to the rural markets, obviously. Everybody's attracted to the coastal beach markets.
Oh, yes.
It's hard not to like that.
We can attest to
But
that.
that number always frightened me, mid-pandemic, when you start seeing 1,000 people. We're not talking households.
I know.
We're talking people.
People.
That's a staggering number.
It is.
And thankfully, that number has kind of softened to a little bit more of a realistic number, but it does not get us away from the simple fact that North Carolina is a destination state.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes. Now, are we
have that.
a close second to South Carolina? Are we the same, or?
I don't think, I can't speak to South Carolina, honestly. I don't think they're where we are, but they're probably pacing at the same level.
Yeah, because I know that I heard, of course, Horry County, Myrtle Beach area.
Yeah, certainly
and-
Horry County is
Yeah,
is having a very similar
they
market.
have this huge influx.
Yeah,
of
I would
people,
say,
so-
we have a little knowledge about Horry County. I can't speak for the whole state.
Yeah.
I can barely speak to North Carolina. But
I think you do very well.
thank you. But it is interesting to see some of the migration patterns. And what's, we're seeing some things that we haven't seen in the past. And we've always historically seen, since I've been here, I've only been here 15 years, but that trend of folks coming from the Northeast and the Great Lakes area, that's always been pretty powerful for Brunswick
Yes.
County. But we're seeing people migrate from places that we didn't see
Before.
I mean, who would imagine someone coming from California
I know.
to coastal North Carolina?
We have a lot
A
of
lot.
folks coming from California.
We're seeing a lot of influx
Yep.
from California. I have a new neighbor from California,
Yep,
in my community where I live,
yep.
which, kind of shocked me.
And on that note, we must once again pay some bills. So, folks, stay with us. What a great place we all call home. from colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, attorney at law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, folks, to All Things Brunswick. Once again, we have with us today Bob Percesepe, who is past president of the Brunswick County Realtors Association. And we have gotten such good information from Bob today. I think maybe one last question, and maybe you could talk to us a little bit about exactly what you folks do, and I know that you have your own entity, right?
Yeah.
And so talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay. So it's always a little confusing to the average consumer because most folks just associate the phrase realtor with anybody who sells real estate. Mm-hmm. And that's really not the case. The National Association of Realtors is actually a trade association. We are the largest trade association in the country. We have roughly 1.5 million members across the country. There's 55,000 right here in North Carolina.
Wow,
And
I did not know that.
Right. We have 1,600 realtors in Brunswick County alone.
Wow.
As opposed to folks that just simply hold a real estate license and are not part of the trade organization. Mm-hmm. So the thing that separates realtor members is that we work to a very strong code of ethics. We're one of the only trade fraternities that has a self-governing, self-policing body.
That's
in other
great.
words, we manage ourselves and we hold ourselves to a little bit of a higher standard. And our code of ethics is very, very strong. It's a very powerful dynamic. And most importantly, we are engaged in our community. We live, work, worship, eat, sleep right where everybody else does. Mm-hmm. And we're part of the community. I'm so proud of Brunswick County Association of Realtors, not because I'm just a past president and a member, but just because of what the association does. We're a hugely benevolent, charitable organization. We put energy and time and resources and money into dozens of charities in Brunswick County. And we actually even have a task force that's committed to that. We call it BCAR, Brunswick County Association of Realtors. BCAR Cares. And this is a group of people that never stop giving, and they never stop looking for ways to serve the community and feed the community. I mean, I can go on and on. Bicycle drives, backpacks, you name it. We do it.
I had no idea.
We are a very, very benevolent association, and we're very proud to be part of this community and engage. Just this past couple of weeks, we had beach sweeps. I mean, you might have seen realtors out on the beach picking up trash on the beach or on the side of the roads, and you know, we're pretty engaged in things like that. So very, very proud of what realtor members do.
That's wonderful.
From top to bottom. And, you know, really, most importantly, when you see a real estate professional that wears that blue pin, now I'm not wearing my blue pin right now, Mary, but everybody's seen that blue logo. I would encourage anybody who's listening or anybody who has questions about what realtors actually do, That blue pin means a lot. That blue logo means, very simply, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, I was advocating for you way before we ever met. We spend a lot of energy and a lot of resources as a body of trade professionals advocating for home ownership rights. We are always spearheading, always at the front of protecting home ownership rights, whether it's small homeowners, large homeowners, tract developers. We're there to protect home ownership rights at every level. And it's one of the main focuses of the realtor community, whether it's short-term rental challenges that we have right here in Brunswick County. We already talked about, accessory dwelling units. Certainly these are all things that realtors spearhead and try to stay in front of at every level. And, we do this through a variety of mechanisms, but we represent the community, we represent the marketplace, and we represent consumers. We're here to help consumers. So when you're thinking about buying or selling a piece of real estate, I would encourage all the listeners, please look for that blue pin.
Yeah.
Ask your real estate professional, are you a realtor? Are you a member of the National Association of Realtors? Nothing's perfect in life. No question about it. Our association is not perfect by far, but we work pretty doggone hard to make sure we get as close to perfect as we can.
That's wonderful. I had no idea that you do what
You're not
you
alone,
do.
Mary. Most folks don't know. They associate that word realtor,
I know with
with just anyone who buys. It's
So people who are realtors, they can come to you and want to be part of you.
yes, if you,
Okay.
it's a great club, by the way.
Yeah, I can tell.
It's a great club. We are, when you get into the business, if you are a real estate practitioner at any level, certainly we always want to make sure that we're open to bringing on new members.
That is wonderful. And I cannot thank you enough for joining us
It's my
today.
pleasure. Thank you for the audience. Thank you for letting me share what realtors are doing.
I would like to have you back.
We can arrange that.
Absolutely. Come back in a few months and let us know what the difference is. Or prior to that, if something exciting happens, just let me know and we'll have you back on.
Thank
for
you. I appreciate
sure.
it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bob Percesepe, and he is a realtor who lives in Southport.
I live in Southport, yes.
Yes. And he's past president of the Brunswick County Realtors Association, and he has a lot to offer. If you need help selling or buying, I'm sure that your
We can connect you.
contact information is out there. Look for the blue pin.
Look for the blue pin.
Yes. And please join us again next week when we'll bring another show to you. I believe next week we are having the mayor of Boiling Spring Lakes who's going to update you on the dams and the progress that they have been making. And tell your friends, join us, All Things Brunswick. Good night.